A few weeks ago, I was alone in the ranger cabin. I'm 34, and I've spent years in these northern woods. After losing my job as a park guide, I needed the solitude. I liked being outdoors, away from the noise of the city. It was quiet, almost too quiet. That evening I settled by the fire, enjoying the crackling sounds. Suddenly, I heard laughter. It was a child's laughter echoing through the trees. I thought maybe some campers were nearby, but I decided to wait until morning. The next day, I took my usual hike. The sun was shining. Birds fluttered around, chirping happy songs. It felt peaceful until I spotted fresh footprints on the path. I didn't remember seeing them before. A chill crept up my spine. I shook my head, trying to brush off the unsettling feeling. Maybe I was just being paranoid after so much time alone. That night, the laughter came again. It was closer this time. I glanced at the shadows around me, trying to convince myself it was nothing. Days went on, but I heard whispers as dusk settled. They seemed to float through the trees. Sometimes I thought I could hear words, but they never made sense. It felt like something was watching me, lingering just beyond the shadows. I found myself avoiding certain paths. I told myself it was just the woods playing tricks on me. But deep down, I knew something was off. I began to feel trapped by my own mind. One evening, I decided to collect firewood. As I gathered sticks, I saw something move in my peripheral vision, just a flash. I turned, but nothing was there. My heart raced. I wanted to tell myself it was exhaustion, but I was wide awake. I hurried back to the cabin, locked the door, and tried to sleep, but sleep wouldn't come. Sitting in the dark, I heard the laughter again, clearer now. It felt like it was right outside my window. I froze, sensing something cold. I took a deep breath and peeked outside. The woods were still. Nothing but shadows swaying in the wind. The feeling of wrongness hung heavy in the air, like something waited to reveal itself. That night, every rustle made me jump. I thought about packing up and leaving, but I didn't want to let fear win. I could feel the presence in the corners of the forest, unsettling and strange. Then I heard it again, a whisper right at my door. My legs felt shaky, but I walked to the door and opened it slowly. No one was there. I stepped outside, scanning the trees. Then I saw it, a glimpse of a figure darting deeper into the woods. My heart pounded. I wanted to call out, but the words got stuck in my throat. I stood frozen, feeling the weight of the silence around me. The laughter echoed in my mind. I wanted to chase after it, to understand what was happening, but I knew better than to follow. The woods had a way of swallowing those who dared to probe too far. I stepped back into the cabin, locked the door, and held my breath. The next day, I woke up after barely managing to sleep. The sunlight spilled into the cabin, momentarily chasing away the darkness from my mind. But I couldn't shake the feeling that something sinister was close. I needed to distract myself, so I ventured outside. The day felt heavy as I walked along the familiar trails. I kept my eyes peeled for any sign of movement in the underbrush, but nothing stirred. I tried to focus on the sounds of nature, the gentle rustle of leaves, the distant call of a woodpecker, yet every crack of a branch made me flinch, igniting the tension that had settled in my bones. As I continued my hike, I stumbled upon a clearing I hadn't noticed before. It felt open, yet unsettlingly isolated. The trees loomed above, like silent guardians watching from the perimeter. That's when I saw it, a small, weathered toy lying among the grass. A bright red ball, slightly deflated and covered in dirt. It looked so out of place, as if it had been here for ages. I picked it up, feeling a chill run down my spine. I turned the ball over in my hands, searching for some sign of who it belonged to. Suddenly a loud snap echoed in the bushes nearby. My heart raced, and I took a step back, gripping the ball tightly. The laughing I'd heard before returned to me as if it echoed in my mind. I was alone, yet it felt wrong to be here. Frantically, I scanned the trees again and took off back toward the cabin. Panic stirred in my stomach, pushing me to move faster. I couldn't shake the feeling of being followed, a presence at my heels. It felt like the air thickened with each step I took, and each breath became labored. Why had I ventured so far? By the time I reached the cabin, I slammed the door behind me, locking it tight. I held the ball in my hands, staring at it like it was a ticking bomb. Memories flickered in and out of my mind, the laughter, the glimpses of the figure. I noticed an odd pattern forming in my head. It was like the woods were gradually revealing themselves to me, but not in a way I wanted to see. As I sat down on my worn-out couch, clutching the ball, something hit the outside of the door. I jumped, my heart racing again. "It's just the wind," I whispered to myself. But I didn't believe it. I stood up slowly, taking small steps toward the door. Then came a soft knock, almost childlike in its innocence. A chill gripped me. I thought of the laughter. Against all reason I felt the urge to respond, but I couldn't. The last glimpse of that figure crossed my mind, and the laughter echoed in my ears once more, taunting and playful. I stumbled back, dropping the ball. It rolled across the floor, and my breath caught in my throat. Silence followed, stretching there in the cabin. But deep in the woods, I could sense the shadows gathering, waiting for me to step back outside. Suddenly the door rattled beneath a heavier force. My heart raced. I couldn't ignore it any longer. Slowly, I turned to grab my flashlight, the only comfort I could find at that moment. I was done hiding. Somehow I knew the woods weren't finished with me yet. I took a shaky breath as I tightened my grip on the flashlight. The door rattled again, more violently this time. "Who's there?" I called out, my voice quavering as I crossed my arms for protection. Silence met my question, stretching so thin I could hear my own heartbeat. I stood frozen, waiting for a response that never came. The rattling began again, and I took a hesitant step toward the door, shining my flashlight through the tiny window. Darkness loomed outside, swallowing any hint of light that reached the edges of the trees. I could see nothing but the faintest outline of bark and branches twisting into the night. Something felt wrong, too still, too deliberate. I thought about the ball rolling across the floor, a toy forgotten and so far removed from my reality. Still, I felt it held all the answers, if only I could unlock them. I knelt down, reaching for it. My fingers brushed against the worn texture, and for a moment I lost myself, staring into the deep red that had become dulled by age and neglect. Then came the sound again, but this time it wasn't a knock. It was a voice, high-pitched and playful, calling out from the darkness. "Come play with us!" I swallowed hard. Cold dread settled in my stomach, and I had to get out of this cabin. Whatever was outside, I needed to confront it. I couldn't ignore the feeling any longer. "Stay away," I shouted. "I'm not afraid of you." The words felt weak, and I hated myself for saying them. My heart beat louder than the voice outside, and an unsettling silence quickly replaced the childish call. Then it came again, clearer now, almost like laughter, reverberating through the trees behind me. I stumbled back, almost tripping over the ball once more. Light from the flashlight danced across the room, illuminating corners that felt alive with shadow. I directed the beam toward the window, scanning the landscape for movement. In that moment, a figure flickered at the edge of the light before disappearing behind the trees. My breath caught in my throat. Someone was out there. Before I could react, another swift knock echoed through the door, shaking the very hinges. I froze, feeling sweat trickling down my back. I had to get outside to understand what was happening. Whatever was waiting for me, whatever had made the innocent sounds, I had to face it. I gathered my courage and threw open the door. The cool night air rushed in, carrying with it the scent of earth and damp leaves. I stepped outside, flashlight raised, illuminating a path that seemed to swallow the light whole. Every crack in the underbrush sent jolts of fear through me. "Who's playing games?" I called out, my voice bolder than I felt. "Show yourself." The woods responded with silence, but I sensed the presence lingering nearby. My pulse quickened as I turned the flashlight in a wide arc, searching for something, anything. That's when I noticed it. A trail of small, unmistakable footprints leading deeper into the shadows. It was a trail that seemed to beckon me forward. I hesitated, contemplating the threat that awaited me, but curiosity got the better of my fear. Without thinking, I stepped into the darkness, ready to follow, just as it called to me. I had to know what was behind the laughter. As I moved deeper, the air thickened again, and a whisper floated through the trees, chilling me to the bone. "You'll play with us, won't you?" I gritted my teeth, feeling the weight of something unseen watching me closely. I couldn't turn back. The woods demanded my attention now, and they were not ready to let me go. The forest seemed alive as I stepped further into its embrace. Each branch creaked under the weight of my unease. The path narrowed, and I felt a chill ripple down my spine. The laughter had faded, replaced by a deep, yet playful giggle that echoed from somewhere ahead. It was almost musical, but it set my teeth on edge. As I followed the footprints, I felt the weight of each moment pressing down on me. There was something about the energy in the air. It felt charged, electric. I glanced over my shoulder, almost expecting to see someone behind me, but only shadows stared back. My flashlight beam flickered and I tightened my grip. The last thing I needed was to be left in the complete dark. Then I stumbled upon a clearing. The moonlight spilled in, illuminating a small circle of ancient trees. In the center the laughter erupted again, louder this time, a symphony of childish voices mingling with the wind. Fear ignited in my chest, but my curiosity pushed me forward. I could see shapes shifting in the shadows, darting around the trees. That's when I noticed it. A pile of toys, discarded and neglected, lay in a heap in the center of the clearing. Dolls, teddy bears, and bright red toy trucks, all worn down as if they'd seen years of play without human hands. I stepped closer, my heart hammering. The faces on the dolls were twisted, their expressions unsettlingly joyful. It felt wrong, and yet there was something captivating about it. In that moment, everything went still. The giggles stopped, replaced by a palpable tension that filled the air. I was not alone. A chill swept through the clearing as shadows shifted again. That was when I saw them. Figures emerged from behind the trees, small, childlike silhouettes, their forms flickering like they were made of mist or smoke. They circled around the toys, eyes glowing eerily, watching me with intense curiosity. "Come play," one of them called, their voice sweet and sinister all at once. "We've been waiting for you." Panic surged through me. I could see their faces more clearly now, the innocent delight of children twisted with something darker, something that sent an icy wave of dread washing over me. I turned to run, but the shadows seemed to close in. "Don't leave! Don't leave!" they chanted, their voices growing louder, echoing through the trees like a haunting refrain. My heart raced as I turned and ran back the way I came, retracing my steps, but the forest felt alive with eyes watching me, whispering and giggling all around. I heard the sound of footsteps behind me, too close, too eager. As I broke through the underbrush, I desperately searched for the cabin, praying I could escape before they caught me. Then everything went dark. The beam from my flashlight flickered out, plunging me into pitch blackness. I fumbled for the switch, panic rising in my throat. The whispers grew louder and more frantic. They were all around me now, shadows merging with the trees, a chorus of laughter that seemed to come from everywhere. I stumbled forward but couldn't see where I was going. The trail had vanished. I felt the clawing panic rising, desperate to find the cabin. Suddenly, a small hand grabbed my wrist, cold and light as a feather. "Stay and play," it whispered. "You don't want to miss the fun." In that moment I realized my night was far from over. I yanked my arm away, stumbling backward into the thick brush. The laughter escalated, mixing with the rustling leaves and creating a chaotic symphony that echoed in my ears. I forced myself to breathe, to think. I needed to get out of here, away from these shadows. But the woods felt like a labyrinth, each turn leading me deeper into the heart of madness. I darted away from the whispers, zigzagging through the darkness. My flashlight sputtered, giving only fleeting glimpses of the trees suffocating me. Fear clawed at my throat. "Just get to the cabin," I muttered to myself, though the words felt hollow in my ears. Then a shriek pierced the air, a sound that curdled my blood. It wasn't like the childish giggles anymore. It was raw and filled with desperation. I stopped short, my heart sinking as I strained to discern the source. "Help!" a voice cried out. It was a child, but something in it rang false, twisted. I wanted to run, yet a strange compulsion drew me closer. There, nestled between two ancient oaks, I saw a girl. She knelt near the base of a tree, her head down, hair cascading over her face. A small, pale hand reached toward something on the ground, twigs, leaves. The sight should have sparked sympathy, but instead it filled me with a potent blend of fear and dread. "Are you okay?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. The girl didn't look up. She just kept working. "What happened?" "Help me," she said, her tone oddly flat. "They want to play." The shadows behind her flickered closer. I stepped back, instinct telling me to flee. "I can't—" "Stay!" The other voices surged again, the chorus of laughter booming around me. "Play! Play!" It felt as if the air itself thickened, wrapping around my chest. I turned to run, but found the path blocked by another shadow, a boy, with glimmering eyes that seemed to draw the light in like a black hole. Something about him felt wrong. There was an intensity in his gaze, a longing that turned my insides to ice. "Playing is fun," he insisted, stepping forward, arms outstretched. "You'll like it. Trust us." Then I saw it, a flicker of movement behind him. My breath caught as something twinkled in the darkness, catching the reflection of my flashlight. It was a toy. Another doll, its lifeless gaze fixed on me, its lips pulled back in a malicious smile. The urge to escape surged within me, shoving aside any curiosity. I darted left, unprepared for the frantic rush around me. The shadows snapped at my heels, but I didn't look back. I pushed through the underbrush until I burst into a narrow path that led away from the clearing. "Come back!" they screeched, their voices trailing after me. "The game's just begun!" As I ran, I could feel their presence lingering, brushing against my skin like a whispered threat. My breath came in ragged gasps as I bolted deeper into the woods, praying the cabin was near. I stumbled, catching a glimpse of the moonlight breaking through the trees ahead, feeling an ember of hope rekindle within me. But the hope quickly faded when I realized I wasn't just being pursued, I was being herded. The forest twisted around me, branches clawing at my arms and legs as though it were a living thing intent on keeping me inside. The shadows danced and flickered, drawing closer with every frantic step I took. Then, through the chaos, a chilling thought struck me. What if the cabin wasn't an escape? What if it was a trap? The laughter echoed in my mind, blending with the wind and growing stronger, more insistent. I had to find out what was waiting for me inside that wooden shell. I could almost see it now. Warm light spilling from the windows, a sanctuary from the terror outside. But was it? Before I could answer my own question, something cold and clammy brushed my neck. "Play with us," the whispers purred. "We promise you'll stay forever." And in that dreadful moment I realized, whether I reached the cabin or not, my night had just begun. I pushed through the underbrush, my mind racing with confusion and fear. The shadows were thicker here, seeming to coil around my legs like snakes. I could still hear the children's laughter echoing behind me, a sinister reminder that the game wasn't over yet. As I broke free from the dense thicket, I caught sight of the cabin. It loomed ahead, a dark silhouette against the moonlit sky. The flickering light inside beckoned me like a moth to a flame. It looked so inviting, so safe, but I hesitated. What if it was a trap? My heart pounded with every step closer. With every ounce of courage, I pushed open the door. It creaked loudly, echoing into the silence as I stepped inside. The air felt stale, filled with dust and something that I couldn't quite identify. I flicked on my flashlight, illuminating the interior. An old wooden table, mismatched chairs and cobwebs lining the corners greeted me. I scanned the room for any signs of life, but it was just me and the shadows. A fireplace stood cold in one corner, and a staircase led to the darkened upper floor. The feeling of being watched washed over me again. I wasn't alone. "Hello?" I called out, my voice shaking. The only reply was silence. I moved deeper into the room, trying to ignore the gnawing dread in my stomach. There had to be a phone or something I could use. Just as I reached the counter, I noticed something small and shiny, half hidden under a filthy cloth. I hesitated only a moment before pulling it away. It was a doll, like the one I had seen before, but different. This one had eyes that seemed almost alive, and its smile twisted at the corners, mocking me. A chill ran down my spine. I dropped it as if it burned my fingers, but not before noticing something more. There was something carved into its wooden body, letters arranged in a familiar pattern that sent an icy wave of recognition coursing through me. It spelled out the names of the missing children from the area, names I had read on pamphlets years ago. I felt sick. Suddenly the cabin door slammed shut with a resounding thud. The laughter outside stopped abruptly. I spun around, heart racing, and saw shadows pooling at the base of the door. They stretched and twisted, reaching for me. "Play with us!" the chorus of voices cried again, but this time there was an urgency, a demand. "You can't leave!" Panic surged as I darted for the window. I pulled at the latch, but it wouldn't budge. My breath quickened. Their laughter filled the cabin now, echoing off the walls like a sinister chant. I remembered the stairs, but there was no time. I had to find a way out. Then, in a flash of madness, I thought of the fireplace. I rushed to it, hoping to find a way out through the back. As I inspected the area, the laughter turned into a cacophony, drowning out my thoughts. The shadows thickened around me, urging me to join them. Before I could backtrack, I heard a soft whisper behind me. "Don't be scared," it said sweetly. I turned, breath caught in my throat. A figure emerged from the darkness, a girl, her face pale and smudged, her eyes bright with joy. "Come play," she beckoned, and I felt the grip of dread tighten around my heart. As she stepped closer, I realized, with a sickening feeling, what I had to do next. I was trapped, and the game hadn't even started yet. The girl's smile widened as she moved closer. The shadows around her seemed to dance, writhing like living things drawn to her. I shook my head, desperate to reject the reality unfurling before my eyes. "No, I can't." "Why not?" she asked, tilting her head. Her voice was sweet, but it felt like ice scraping against my skin. "We just want to play, just like the others." Images flashed through my mind, missing posters, tear-streaked faces pleading for information. I couldn't get trapped like them. I had to make a choice. I backed away, hands trembling as I searched for any route of escape. The cabin felt smaller now, like the walls were closing in, and every inch of the space seemed alive with whispers and laughter. "You have to let me go," I yelled, panic spilling out of my mouth. "Let you go!" The girl giggled, stepping forward. "But you don't want to leave. You want to play." "Let me go!" I shouted again, my voice cracking. I turned and sprinted for the stairs, heart racing as I heard the sound of laughter swell behind me, matching my frantic pulse. I flew up the creaky steps, desperate to gain ground between us. At the top, I found a dim hallway, doors lining each side. I hesitated, unsure where to run. One door stood slightly ajar, a sliver of darkness beyond it. I burst inside, closing it behind me and leaning against it, breathless. The room was empty but for a dusty mattress in the corner and a dusty mirror that hung crookedly on the wall. I glanced at my reflection, feeling like a ghost. My eyes widened when I noticed the dull glimmering in the corner of the mirror, a pair of eyes watching me from the other side of the glass. Cold dread washed over me. I turned quickly, pressing my back against the door, my heart hammering in my chest. I needed a plan, something, anything, to escape this nightmare. Thoughts raced in my mind when suddenly a noise came from the hallway outside. A thud, then another, like footsteps nearing. I darted to the window, peering out into the night. The ground was too far down to jump without breaking something. I was trapped. I had to find another way, a new clue. That's when I saw it. A small, flickering light under the doorframe. A candle or maybe a lantern. It flickered, casting erratic shadows that danced along the walls. I felt an urge to reach for it, despite the spiral of terror building inside me. I turned my attention back to the door. The footsteps were closer now. I braced myself, knowing I had to act quickly. One idea formed in my mind. It was risky. It was insane. But in that moment of clarity, it felt like my only chance. I threw open the window and leaned out into the darkness. I had to be brave. I had to get to the ground, a step toward escaping this twisted game. But just as I prepared to climb out, something heavy thudded against the door behind me. It rattled in its frame, sending a wave of panic through me. I peered back, my heart sinking. The girl stood there again, her eyes gleaming and her smile stretching wider. "You can't leave," she sang. My last heartbeat felt like a countdown. If I didn't jump now, I might never get the chance again. The moment I heard the thud and saw the girl's unwavering gaze, I knew it was now or never. I yanked myself up and swung my legs outside. The cold air hit me like a slap, but I didn't hesitate. I let myself drop. The ground was just as far as I feared, and I hit with a thud that stole the breath from my lungs. I winced, fighting against the pain shooting through my leg, but I forced myself to stand. Adrenaline kept me moving, even as chaos filled my mind. I stumbled, scanning my surroundings. The forest was dense, shadows twisting between the trees, whispering in a language I couldn't understand. I had a single thought: run. I picked a direction and galloped through the underbrush, branches scratching at my arms and legs. Behind me I heard laughter, distant but close enough to twist the knife of fear deeper. I could feel the presence of something chasing me, but I dared not look back. Keep moving, just keep moving. My breath came in gasps, and after a few moments I stumbled into a small clearing. Moonlight bathed the area, illuminating the trees surrounding me. But that brief respite faded when I noticed something on the ground. A crumpled piece of paper half buried in fallen leaves. Without thinking, I snatched it up. It was a map, old and faded, but the markings were clear. My heart raced when I spotted a prominent X marked deep in the woods. I could just make out a familiar shape. It looked like the cabin I had escaped. The laughter behind me grew louder, closer. They were coming for me. I had to decide, keep running or risk finding out what that X meant. The thought of the girl and her twisted smile gnawed at my gut. I couldn't go back. But if I didn't make a move soon, I wouldn't have any choice at all. I made my decision. I would head towards X. There had to be something there. Maybe it was a way out, or maybe it was a trap. But I didn't have time to wonder which. I shoved the map into my pocket and sprinted forward again, eyes fixed on that darkened spot in the distance. The closer I got, the more the air shifted. It felt thick, almost otherworldly. I could hear faint voices, as if the trees themselves whispered secrets. An overwhelming sense of dread settled over me, but I pressed on, driven by the hope of finding safety, or some sort of answer. As I reached the clearing where the X marked my fate, A low growl broke the silence. My breath caught. I spun around, heart racing with the realization that I was not alone. Before me stood a figure, shadowy and indistinct, deep-set eyes locking onto mine. I couldn't see its face, but I felt it watching me, studying me. Just then, I understood. Whatever was in the woods was not the girl or her friends. It was something much worse. And in that moment of understanding, the ground began to tremble beneath me. I stumbled backward, feeling the weight of unseen forces close in around me. My escape was no longer certain, and the woods were alive in a way I never could have imagined. Now the question was, could I survive this encounter? I couldn't stand frozen, anchored by fear. The figure before me seemed to pulse with darkness, a void in the forest that swallowed the light around it. I darted to the side, my instincts roaring to escape. But the ground quaked again, and I felt it, a shift in the air, as if something was pressing down on me from every direction. With a surge of adrenaline, I sprinted deeper into the woods, ignoring the sharp pain from my leg. I could hear the whispers growing louder, sounding almost like a chant wrapping around me, urging me to stop. That X on the map felt like a puzzle piece clicking into place. Maybe it held what the creature wanted, or what I needed. I needed to push forward despite the chaos unfurling behind me. I pressed on, branches clawing at my skin with each frantic step. The laughter returned, echoing through the trees, a cacophony mocking my fear. They were near. I stumbled, looking frantically for anything that resembled the cabin marked on the map. Then something caught my eye, a flicker of movement. I turned, and just ahead was a crumbling structure, its outlines barely visible in the moonlight. It had to be it. Heart racing, I pushed past the underbrush, moving towards the dilapidated building that felt both inviting and menacing. As I crossed the threshold, darkness enveloped me. The stench of must and decay overwhelmed my senses. I felt around, searching for a light source, and my fingers brushed against something cool and metallic. I yanked it free, an old lantern. Desperate, I struck a match, and the flame flickered to life. Casting shadows that danced along the walls, I glimpsed remnants of lives once lived, faded photographs, cracked furniture, the remnants of a kitchen long abandoned. But there was another item that made my stomach twist, an altar of sorts, covered in strange symbols. It pulsed with an energy that made the hairs on my neck stand up. I felt a presence behind me. I turned swiftly, the lantern's light shaking as I aimed it in the direction of the doorway. Nothing. Just shadows. I was losing my grip on reality. The laughter outside receded, replaced by an eerie silence that pressed against my eardrums. The shadows seemed to merge and twist into the figure I had seen in the woods. I backed away, the faint light pushing against it but not driving it away. Its eyes glowed, watching, waiting. That's when I saw it. A small journal nestled in the corner of an old bookshelf, the leather cover cracked and worn. It called to me, the promise of answers lurking inside. My heart pounded. It could tell me what happened here. But as I reached for it, a deep growl erupted, reverberating through the cabin. I froze, knowing I had seconds to decide. Grabbing that journal might provide the key to understanding this nightmare, but staying put could mean facing whatever hunted me. I could sense it lingering just outside, its hunger palpable. The air felt electric, thick with danger. The growl grew louder, echoing through the old wood. I was running out of time, and I had to act fast or risk being trapped in this cursed place forever. I took a deep breath, steeling my nerves. The journal was within reach. Did I dare to grab it? With a burst of resolve, I lunged for the journal. My fingers brushed against the worn leather and clutched it tightly as though it held my lifeline. The growl intensified, rattling the very foundation of the cabin. I turned, heart racing as I swung the lantern around, confronting the darkness that closed in on me. "What do you want?" I yelled, my voice echoing against the walls. The shadows coiled, harmonizing with that resonant growl, but the figure remained silent. I stumbled back, the weight of the journal heavy in my hands. I had to make sense of this chaos, even if it killed me. Flipping the journal open, I fumbled through pages filled with hasty scrawls and frantic sketches. There were drawings of the very shadows that tormented me, their shapes contorting in ways that defied nature. My stomach churned as I read snippets about children, lost souls, ensnared by laughter and whispers in the woods. There were warnings about traps disguised as play, hints of ancient rituals meant to feed something dark. Above it all, a clear message lingered: those who join the game can never leave. The realization hit me like a cold wave. The children weren't the victims, they were the bait, enticing others to join their fate. I gripped the journal tighter, fear coursing through my veins. If I didn't escape, I would become another name lost to the shadows. "Stay with us!" The voice came from behind the door, sweet but twisted. I could almost hear the clap of tiny hands celebrating my turmoil. "Leave me alone!" I shouted back, forcing my voice to be steady. I darted toward the window, leaning against it, the thumping of my heart drowning out the laughter. Outside, the darkness seemed restless, eager for new prey. The growl came again, layered with whispers. "Let's play!" My fingers trembled over the journal, ready to tear it out of my grip. Whatever was waiting outside was yearning for me. It wanted me to join their game, to forget that I'd come seeking peace and solitude. I turned the page, the lantern casting an otherworldly glow. A map, different from the last, showed a series of underground tunnels. Beneath the forest, it whispered of escape. I needed to trust this journal, even if it felt like a last resort. I took a deep breath and moved back into the room, avoiding the door as I made my way to an old trapdoor hidden beneath rug fibers, its outline almost imperceptible. Without hesitating, I pried it open, revealing a dark staircase that descended into uncertainty. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth. I considered how far I was willing to go. Tired of the torment, I decided to take the risk. I couldn't go back. I wouldn't let the shadows swallow me whole. Descending into the tunnel, I gripped the lantern tightly, the flickering light offering small comfort as darkness enveloped me. Each step felt heavier, the walls seeming to pulse with energy long forgotten. The laughter echoed above, fading with distance, but I could still feel their unyielding presence lingering just out of my reach. Somewhere deeper within the earth, I could feel a shift in the air, the laughter and whispers disappearing like a chant, dissolving into silence. I pulled the journal closer. Its pages now held secrets that might save me. An exit had to exist above ground. But as I moved forward, a sense of foreboding settled over me once more. I could feel the darkness pulsating, threatening to pull me back, promising the safety of companionship in exchange for surrendering my will. I didn't stop. I couldn't. I navigated the tunnels with trepidation, feeling surreal and uncertain, like a marionette's strings severed in a storm, free yet aimless. I could hear the scrape of something moving closer through the passageways, echoing my trepidation, and just as I thought I might finally escape, that foreboding growl rang out behind me, growing in intensity. I broke into a near sprint, relying on instinct alone as I burrowed forward. Then, just when I felt the tendril of shadow graze my ankle, a glimmer of light appeared ahead, a faint, inviting illumination. I inched toward it until the tunnel opened into a vast chamber, the ground uneven and littered with debris. In its center, a soft glow pulsed, originating from an altar similar to the one above, surrounded by more forgotten toys that had never been played with. Tattered dolls and broken games burdened with dread. I stepped further into the light, though doubt stitched through my mind. "This isn't salvation," I whispered to myself as shadows flickered. The presence loomed still, taunting me quietly. I had to confront it, whatever it was. But even as I stood there, my heart raced, limbs trembling as uncertainty washed over me. I could feel the pull. "Don't leave. Stay and play. That last line echoed in my mind as I looked around at the remnants of lost children, ghosts left forever within the laughter. I needed to find an escape, a way to break this cycle. But the shadows shifted once more, and the game was far from over. I dashed toward the pulsing light, knowing that whatever lay behind me was ready to ensnare me forever. And as I extended my hand toward that light, I froze. Would it lead me to freedom or into deeper darkness? I still couldn't tell. The answers hung just out of reach, pulled away by the relentless grasp of shadows that now held my fate. In that moment, I chose to leap into the unknown.